All right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called The Birds, 1963. I love this flick. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 stars. The movie poster looks decent. It could be the most terrifying motion picture ever made. Signed Alfred Hitchcock. I don't know. Well, Seconds was pretty terrifying, but I did love this flick. I can now see why Birdemic Shock and Terror was such a poor imitation of The Birds. Even though the special effects are kind of shoddy in this one, they're still better than Birdemic Shock and Terror, believe it or not. Starring Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy, Suzanne Pleshette, and introducing Tippi Hedren. Tippi Hedren did not like The Dirty Old Man director. The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds in Technicolor. There he is, the myth, the man, the myth, and the legend. And he says on the movie poster, and remember, the next screen you hear may be your own. This is a cool horror flick. Lots of blood, some gore with a dude gets his eyes plucked out by birds. And then they do a kind of, what do you call that? Film editing where they do they do a jump cut into his poked out eyeballs. That was super cool. And Jessica Tandy is just goes driving down this dirt road 100 miles an hour. What a cool flick. I thought I had actually seen this movie, but when I watched it now, I couldn't recognize any of the scenes. Like, I don't remember anything about this movie. And I purposely avoided it when I was a kid because I thought it was too lamestream. And I wasn't a big Alfred Hitchcock fan to begin with. It was only after I saw Vertigo that I really started to like Hitchcock. And this film was not available on Netflix DVD or Netflix streaming. So I had to watch it in 4K Ultra HD on Amazon Prime for $3.79 on my credit card. Man, my credit card bill keeps going up and up and up. Keep buying vitamins on sale at Safeway. So I got those stocked up to the hilt. I mean, they don't even fit in my medicine cabinet anymore. They're just sitting there on the kitchen counter, which is where I keep my crock pot, my toaster oven, and my 2 burners. It's also got a sink. And anyways, highly recommended. Check out this flick. Great horror flick. Lots of blood, a little bit of gore. Some cool, albeit cheap-looking special effects. So bad that they're type of special effects. And not nearly as bad as Birdemic Shock and Terror. And it's got some cool-looking car explosions. And it's got the great um, Tippi Hedren in a cool looking what is lake green color, I guess. She's got her lake green outfit. She's only there for like a day, and she's just getting mauled by these birds. Her hair is all messy, and she's a knockout. I like the way she pulls up her hair in a bun too. It's very meticulous how they did her hair. A fascinating new personality, Tippi Hedren, and her dress too. Amazing. Hitchcock does to a blonde woman what they all wish for, but when they work for him, they think he's a disgusting, dirty old man. The movie comes out, it speaks for itself, in my view. Nobody else could present her in such an incredible manner, and then she gets ripped to pieces. Literally, I mean, her face looks like a blood ribbon or something. Anyways, she gets ripped to shreds when she opens the door in the house. Don't open that door, Tippi Hedren. The Birds is a 1963 U.S. natural horror thriller film produced and directed by the great Alfred Hitchcock, released by Universal Pictures and starring Jessica Tandy, Rod Taylor, Suzanne Pleshette, and introducing Tippi Hedren in her film debut. And what a debut it was. Her second movie, whatever it was called, was not nearly as good as this. Loosely based on the 1952 short story of the same name by Daphne du Maurier, it focuses on a series of sudden and unexplained violent bird attacks on the people of Bodega Bay, California. And my friend Terrence Collins was just in Bodega Bay something like 3 days ago. Anyway, it takes place over the course of a few days. Excuse me. But I notice in this one, she's either in her green outfit or her pajamas. She didn't bring any laundry soap or extra set of clothes. The screenplay is by Evan Hunter, who was told by Hitchcock to develop new characters and a more elaborate plot while keeping de Maurier's title and concept of unexplained bird attacks. While it initially received mixed reviews when originally released, its reputation improved over time, and it has since been considered to be one of the greatest horror films of all time. At the 36th Academy Awards, Ewix was nominated for Best Special Effects for his work on the film. And it's not even that great, but it looks great for 1963. The award, however, went to the only other nominee, Emil Cosa Jr., for Cleopatra. Cleopatra is another great movie. Hedren won the Golden Globe Award for New Star of the Year actress for her role in the film. In 2016, The Birds was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the United States Library of Congress, and it was selected for preservation in its national film registry. Oh, Adrian's in the chat room. I was just commenting on how shoddy of a production Birdemic shock and terror was compared to this. They didn't even drown out the noise in the restaurant in that movie. So it was a poor ripoff on the birds, but I have not seen Birdemic Part 2, so I have no comment on the sequel. And I don't even know if it's available on YouTube, Tubi, or Amazon Prime. I think not. At a San Francisco pet store, socialite Melanie Daniels meets lawyer Mitch Brenner, who's got hirsute hair chest and eyebrows. He's got hirsute eyebrows, Mitch Brenner, who wants to buy lovebirds for his sister Kathy's 11th birthday. Isn't that nice? What a nice brother. He went all the way to San Francisco from 60 miles north of Bodega Bay just to buy lovebirds for his 11-year-old sister. The production company is Alfred J. Hitchcock Productions, distributed by Universal Pictures. Release date March 28, 1963. Running time 119 minutes. Country United States. Language English. Budget of $3.3 million and a box office, pretty decent box office, $11.4 million. So despite the mixed reviews at the time, the film was a relatively decent financial success. It wasn't a bomb. Recognizing Melanie from her court appearance regarding a practical joke going right, Mitch pretends to mistake her for a shop employee. Mitch tests Melanie's knowledge of birds, which she fails. He discloses his prior knowledge of her and leaves without buying anything. Intrigued, Melanie buys the lovebirds, and she drives to Bodega Bay after learning Mitch has gone to his family farm for the weekend. Melanie is directed to a teacher at Bodega, Annie Hayworth, to learn Kathy's name. Annie is Mitch's ex-lover, but their relationship ended due to his overbearing mother, Lydia, who dislikes any woman in Mitch's life. We're talking Jessica Tandy here. What an amazing performance by her and Tippi Hedren. My hat's off to both ladies. Melanie rents a boat and crosses the bay to discreetly leave the lovebirds at the Brenner farm. Mitch spots Melanie as she leaves. Mitch spots Melanie as she leaves and drives to meet her at the dock. As Melanie approaches the wharf, a gulf attacks her. This movie doesn't waste any time, man. It's on as soon as Melanie gets to Bodega Bay. Mitch tends to her head wound inside a diner. It's not the first time she gets attacked by a bird. There are two more. Lydia arrives and meets Melanie, whom Mitch invites to dinner. At the farm, Lydia's hens are refusing to eat. Lydia dislikes Melanie due to her exaggerated reputation. As reported in gossip columns, Mitch invites Melanie, who is staying with Annie, to Kathy's birthday party being held the next day. Later, there is a thud at Annie's front door. A dead gull is found at the threshold. So many great scenes here, with crazy birds go flying around. I suppose Adrian has seen both Birdemic Shock and Terror and Birdemic Shock and Terror Part 2. If that's the name of the film. I don't even remember. Adrian says yes, he has seen both. Too bad I can't find the sequel anywhere. It's a bad movie, and it's not one of those so good that it's bad type movies. It's just plain bad. but it does have that element of cheese factor. You have to appreciate the director for overhyping his piece of poop, steaming piece of poop. I mean, this guy is like he's got the drive of an Ed Wood Jr. type of director going on. At Kathy's party, Melanie tells Mitch about her troubled past and her mother running off with another man when she was Kathy's age. During a game, the children are attacked by gulls. Cool. There's a great scene. I told my son about this where Tippi Hedren is sitting on a bench and there's just one crow, and then she smokes a cigarette. And 5 minutes later, there are 100 on the jungle gym in the playground. What an incredible movie! Unbelievable. Mitch. Oh, I'm sorry. During a game, the children are attacked by gulls. Later that evening, as Melanie dines with the Brenners, sparrows swarm the house through the chimney. Mitch insists she delayed driving back to San Francisco and stay the night. The next morning, Lydia visits her neighbor to discuss why their chickens will not eat. She discovers broken windows in his bedroom and his eyeless corpse pecked by birds, and she flees in horror, driving 100 miles an hour down a dirt road. What a great scene where they jump cut to the guy's poked out eyeballs. What a gory, disgusting image from 1963. While recovering at home, Lydia fears for Kathy's safety, and Melanie offers to pick her up at school. As Melanie waits outside the schoolhouse, a flock of crows engulfs the jungle gym behind her. You can say that again. There was only one crow on there when she started her cigarette. Anticipating an attack, she warns Annie. Rather than leaving the students in the building with its large windows, they evacuate them and the crows attack. Mitch finds Melanie at the diner. When gulls attack a gas station attendant, Mitch and other men assist him outside. The spilled gasoline is ignited by an unaware bystanders match. Some guy smoking a cigar and he can't see the gasoline spill right in front of him, causing a very cool explosion. During the escalating fire, Melanie and others rush out, but more gulls attack. Melanie takes refuge in a telephone booth. Mitch saves her and they return to the diner. A distraught woman blames Melanie for the attacks, claiming from what others told her they began with her arrival. Another great scene where the crazy mother blames Tippi Hedren for all the bird malfunctions. Mrs. Bundy, an ornithologist who scoffed at the reports of birds attacking, sits in stunned silence. And Tippi Hedren just smacks her across the face, and you never see her again. Mitch and Melanie go to Annie's house to fetch Kathy. They find Annie's body outside. She was killed by crows while protecting Kathy. I felt sorry for Annie. She fell in love with Mr. Hirsute Eyebrows, hairy chest dude. And she was rebuffed by the dude's mother, Jessica Tandy. But she still wanted to live there to be his friend, only to see Tippi take him away from her right in front of her face. And then she gets killed by crows while pushing the young 11-year-old Kathy inside the door to protect her. Unbelievable. So she sacrificed her life for Kathy, basically. This is unreal. They take a traumatized Kathy home. That night, Melanie. Yeah, I'd be traumatized too if somebody sacrificed themselves to a bunch of birds for my sake. That night, Melanie and the Brenners barricade themselves in the family home, which is attacked by birds that nearly breach the boarded up doors and windows. And Mitch gets his arm all chewed up while locking the wooden door behind the window. During a lull, Melanie investigates a fluttering sound in the attic bedroom. Bad decision. Don't go in there, Melanie. After discovering that the birds have pecked their way in through the roof, Melanie is attacked viciously for a long time. Her hand and her face are bitten, ripped to shreds, trapping her until Mitch pulls her out, which is another long process. Mitch insists they all drive to San Francisco to take Melanie, now injured and traumatized and catatonic, to a hospital. Melanie is in bad shape. She needs medical attention, but they're in a boarded up house surrounded by vicious birds. As Mitch readies Melanie's car for their escape, a sea of birds has gathered around the Brenner house, and they're completely sedated for some reason that is not explained. Mitch quietly moves the car out. The car radio reports bird attacks on nearby communities, including Santa Rosa and Sebastopol. I've been to both cities. I spent Christmas there with my cousin's mother, my uncle's ex-girlfriend. And my uncle had dementia, and he crapped his undies, and then he put it in the dryer, and all of his crap got all over his ex-girlfriend's dryer. That had to be the highlight of Christmas weekend. Anyways, the military may intervene. The military is coming to blow up these birds. Anyways, Kathy retrieves her lovebirds, the only birds who do not attack, from the house, and she joins Mitch and Lydia as they escort Melanie past a mass of birds and into the car. And that's when Melanie says, no, no, no. And her hirsute eyebrows, hairy chest boyfriend says, no, be quiet. Don't wake him up. Alfred Hitchcock makes his signature cameo as a man walking dogs out of a pet shop at the beginning of the film. They were two of his own Sillyham terriers, Jeffrey and Stanley. Yes, spot on, but it does have the blown down to the bra. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Famous playground scene 2 in the chat room. Poor uncle. All right. Some find it hard to distinguish Adrian's broken English. The screenplay for the film is based on Daphne du Maurier's novella The Birds, which was first published in her 1952 short story collection, The Apple Tree. The protagonist of the novella is a farmhand living in Cornwall, and the conclusion of the story is far more pessimistic than that of the film. I wonder why this had a nice ending. Shouldn't it be a horror film? Why does it have to have a happy ending? It was adopted by Evan Hunter, who had written previously for Alfred Hitchcock's mystery magazine and the television anthology series Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which my friend is a rabid fan of. Even my ex-coworker, Symphony Chu, let me borrow Alfred Hitchcock Presents in DVD format. And I subsequently I reviewed it on this channel. Symphony was a hardcore Alfred Hitchcock fanatic. She had an orange Vertigo poster above her bed, and she drove a Carmen Ghia, which is the car that what's her name drives. Can't think of her. Marge. I think her name is Marge. That was the car that Marge drove, the 1963 Carmen Ghia. Is the same car that Marge drove in Vertigo. And that was her second car. The relationship between Hunter and Hitchcock during the creation of the Birds was documented by the writer in his 1997 autobiography, Me and Hitch. That's bad grammar right there. Me and Hitch. Birdemic has the blonde down to the bra. Oh, I get it now. Okay. He's still talking about Birdemic while I'm talking about the birds. He's trying to be like Karate Man, go off topic here, which is fine. I mentioned Birdemic a couple times in this review. So he's not quite going off on a tangent, Mr. Adrian. It is relevant because Birdemic is, after all, a very poor ripoff of the Birds. Like I said, I haven't seen the sequel, but I'll check back and see if I can find it somewhere on the three major aforementioned streaming services. We'll give it a shot. We'll look it up again, see if we can find it, add it to our list. Fair enough. So Me and Hitch contains a variety of correspondence between the writer, director, and Hitchcock's assistant, Peggy Robertson. Oh, that would have been a fun job. Hitchcock's assistant. The Birds is also partly inspired by the true events of a mass bird attack on the seaside town of Capitola in California on August 18, 1961, when Capitola residents awoke to a scene that seemed straight out of a horror movie. Hordes of seabirds were dive bombing their homes, crashing into cars, and spewing half-digested anchovies onto lawns. Alfred Hitchcock heard of this event, and he used it as research material for this film, which was then in progress. The real cause of the birds' behavior was toxic algae, but that was not known back in the 1960s. So it wasn't Tippi Hedren, it was toxic algae. In the film, the characters make reference to a similar bird attack last year in Santa Cruz, which is an implied reference to the Capitola attack, because Capitola, after all, is right next to Santa Cruz. They are, in fact, the place where I work owns a shopping mall in Capitola. Hunter began working on the screenplay in September 1961. He and Hitchcock developed the story, suggesting foundations such as townspeople having a guilty secret to hide, and the birds, an interest instrument of punishment. He suggested that the film begin using some elements borrowed from the screwball comedy genre, then have to evolve into stark terror. This appealed to Hitchcock, according to the writer, because it confirmed to his love of suspense. The title and the publicity would have already informed the audience that birds attack, but they do not know when. The initial humor followed by horror would turn the suspense into shock. At first, Hunter wanted the protagonist to be a school teacher, but this ended up being the basis for Annie Hayworth's character instead. Hunter organized his scripts by shots instead of scenes, although this did not affect the final film. Hitchcock solicited comments from several people regarding the first draft of Hunter's screenplay, consolidating their criticisms. Hitchcock wrote to Hunter, suggesting that the script, particularly the first part, was too long, contained insufficient characterization in the two leads, and that some scenes lacked drama and audience interest. Hitchcock at later stages consulted with his friends. Hume Cronin, whose wife, Jessica Tandy, was playing Lydia, and V.S. Pritchett, who both offered lengthy reflections on the work. This is something that Hunter found difficult. Hitchcock cut the last 10 pages of the screenplay, although some sources say probably more, in order to create more ambiguous ending. Originally, he wanted the film to end without the end card, but he was forced to include one before the film's release. It's too bad. Could have been a better ending, in my opinion. Many exterior scenes were filmed on location at Bodega Bay, California. Again, my friend was there just 3 days ago. The same town. I think the population is like 921. The majority of the birds seen in the film are real, although it is estimated that more than $200,000 was spent on the creation of mechanical birds for the film. Ray Berwick was in charge of the live birds used in the production, training and catching many of them himself. Some of the crows were actually ravens. The gulls were caught in the San Francisco garbage dump, and the sparrows were caught by John Bud Cardos. However, the captured sparrows had to be used alongside birds from pet shops to achieve full effect in the scene where they invade the house. Once the crow attack and attic scenes were assembled by the film's editor, George Tomasini, they were sent to the special effects department for enhancement. The film required myriad special effects, and Hitchcock commissioned the help of various studios. The special effects shots of the attacking birds were completed at Walt Disney Studios by animator technician Ub Iwerks, who used the sodium vapor process yellow screen, which he had helped to develop. The SV process films the subject against a screen lit with narrow spectrum sodium vapor lights. Unlike most compositing processes, SVP shoots two separate elements of the footage simultaneously using a beam splitter. One reel is regular film stock and the other a film stock with emulsion sensitive only to sodium vapor wavelength. This results in a very precise matte shots compared to blue screen special effects necessary due to fringing of the image from the bird's rapid wing flapping. At Disney, Ewerks worked on the following scenes: a children's party, Melanie driving to Bodega Bay, and the first two cuts of the crow attack sequence. One of the biggest challenges facing Ewerks was a scene where a number of sparrows fly in through the chimney of the family home. Utilizing an optical printer, his superposition of a group of small birds flying inside an enclosed glass booth made it possible to multiply the birds in the living room. Most of the special effects work done at Disney was completed in the process lab on printer 10, which was made from Uwerk's own original design at Metro Golden Mayer MGM. Bob Hoke was put in charge of the optical effects for the sequence where Melanie hides inside a telephone booth as it is attacked by the birds. Hitchcock had requested that Hogue remove any shot where Melanie looked placid and urged that she be in constant movement. Instead, Hogue, along with a team of 30, worked together on the blue blacking and sodium matte shots. Linwood Dunn, a founder of Film Effects of Hollywood, was commissioned to work on the attic scene. He was asked to produce a rough cut of the sequence before Hitchcock left for Berlin in December 1962. Bill Abbott at Fox was in charge of the optical effects for the crow attack sequence, which would take 6 weeks to finish. Abbott organized two teams, both working 11 hours a day, to work on the sequence simultaneously. Abbott's biggest challenge was size ratio, as he had to ensure that the birds looked like they were attacking the children. He achieved this by placing the birds within frame and zooming in on them to make them the correct size and proportion to the children. At Universal Pictures, associate editor Ross Hoffman and matte artist Alfred Whitlock both worked on designing the town's backdrop, including the birds and the trees and the scenery for the river shots of Melanie's car arriving in Bodega Bay. The birds featured 370 effects shots, the final being a composite of 32 separate elements. Hitchcock decided to do without any conventional incidental score. Instead, he made use of sound effects and sparse source music in counterpoint to calculated silences. He wanted to use the electroacoustic mixture trotonium to create the bird calls and noises. He had first encountered this processor to the synthesizer on Berlin radio in the late 1920s. It was invented by Friedrich Totwein and further developed by Oscar Sala into the trotonium, which would create some of the bird sounds for this film. Very cool sound effects in this one, I thought. Many of the sound effects were created by the Mixtor Trotonium, an electrical musical instrument developed by Oscar Sala. The director commissioned Sala and Remy Gassman to design an electronic soundtrack. They are credited with electronic sound production and composition, and Hitchcock's previous musical collaborator, Bernard Herrmann, is credited as sound consultant. Source music includes the first of Claude Debussy's Dukes Arabesques, which Tippi Hedren's character plays on piano, and Nickety Nackety Now 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 by folk physician Chubby Parker, which is sung by the school children. So this is what the school children in Bodega Bay are learning in 1963. Nickety Nackety Now Now Now. Among the central themes explored in The Birds are those of love and violence. The representation of the birds in the film constantly changes to reflect the development of these themes and the story itself. At first, the lovebirds in the pet store signify the blossoming love between Melanie and Mitch. They finally kiss at the end, and the sexual tension between the two. Looks like they're headed for divorce after 1 year. However, the bird symbolism changes once they talk once they begin. However, the bird's symbolism changes once they begin to attack Bodega Bay. Hitchcock stated in an interview that the birds in the film rise up against the humans to punish them for taking nature for granted. I'm not sure what that means. Taking nature for granted? Is that some kind of an environmentalist nonsense? Similar to birdemic, shock, and terror? Humanities scholar Camille Paglia wrote a monograph about the film for the BFI Film Classic series. Oh, I'd like to see that. She interprets it as an ode to the many facets of female sexuality and, by extension, nature itself. She notes that women play pivotal roles in it. Mitch is defined by his relationships with his mother, sister, and ex-lover, a careful balance that is disrupted by his attraction to the beautiful Melanie. Well, you can say that again. She just bust on the scene. We don't care if she was pushed into a water fountain in Rome. I thought they were talking about the Italian actress in the Fellini film. I can't even remember her name. Roman. Oh, it's the Trevi Fountain. The Frolic in the Fountain. La Dolce Vita. Is it Anita Ekberg? I can't even remember her name. Yeah, it's Anita Ekberg. Marcello just jumps into the fountain. She's in this very long dress, but it's low cut around her boobies. And it's very tight fitting. It's got a slit on her legs. She's just a total whore. And she's loving it. Anyway, they tried to put Tippi Hedren in a similar situation in a Roman water fountain, but she said it was a setup. They pushed her into the fountain or something. So I guess they got that from the Dolce Vita. I don't know. Montage, editing, and slow pacing are used within the film to build suspense and elicit a greater emotional response from the audience during the attack scenes. The pattern of the birds was deliberately to go slow. This is exemplified in the scene where the birds gradually gather outside the school while an unobservant Melanie sits and waits on the bench, smoking a cigarette intently, not noticing this massive multiplication of crows on the jungle gym in the schoolyard. The camera then cuts between her and the increasing number of birds that swoop down onto the jungle gym behind her till they finally attack. What a great scene. It goes from one bird to 100 in a matter of minutes. and you don't even hear them fluttering around. You just see Tippi Hedren smoking her cigarette the whole time. The theme of the film, after all, is complacency, as the director has stated on innumerable occasions. When we first meet each of the major characters, their infinite capacity of self absorption is emphasized. Tippi Hedren's bored socialite is addicted to elaborately time consuming practical jokes. Rod Taylor's self righteous lawyer flaunts his arrogant sensuality and his hairy chest. Suzanne Plachette, his ex fiancee, wallows in self pity, and Jessica Tandy, his possessive mother, cringes from her fear of loneliness. Well, it's bound to happen after your husband dies and your son is grown up. There are plenty of empty nesters where I live. In fact, one of them wants me and my son to come visit him in Santa Rosa, which is right near Bodega Bay. The same guy who was in Bodega Bay 3 days ago wants us to come up and visit this summer. I don't know how he's going to bring his best friend from church because he's in a family of like 12 or something. Anyways, with such complex, unsympathetic characters to contend with, the audience begins to identify with the point of view of the birds, actually the inhuman point of view. Film historian Andrew Saris, 1998. I don't know about that. I thought Jessica Tandy was a pretty decent character. Tippi Hedren was decent. She's kind of a worthless human being, though. I mean, she's not very productive. She kind of goes to school. She has a rich family taking care of her. And she does a bunch of BS part-time jobs. Eyeline matches and point of view POV shots within the film encourage audience identification with the particular characters and their subjective experiences. This is achieved by cutting between the character and the object of their gaze. For example, when Melanie crosses a bay near the beginning of the film, the camera cuts between close-ups of her face and shots of the Brenner house from her perspective as she watches Mitch fall for her prank. The focus on editing and visuals rather than dialogue is also an element of pure cinema that Hitchcock largely uses throughout his work. And here's the controversy. More than 50 years after the film was released, it emerged in a series of interviews that Alfred Hitchcock may have behaved inappropriately towards Tippi Hedren during the filming of The Birds. Hedren said there were several incidents where she was subjected to sexual harassment from the frame director. What did he do? Pull out his ding-a-ling? Anyways, cast and crew described his behavior on occasion as obsessive, and Hedren claimed that he suddenly grabbed me and pushed his hands on me. It was sexual. I wonder where his hands were placed. Anyway, she stated that she rejected Hitchcock's advances on numerous occasions. Following the rejection, Hedren was injured during the filming of the phone booth attack scene, consequently suffering cuts to her face from a pane of glass shattering on her. She said that she was misled about the logistics of the final attack sequence because mechanical birds were replaced with real ones at the last minute. There has been speculation that Hitchcock's deliberate inflicting of injury was revenge for Hedren's spurning of his advances. Hitchcock also signed Hedren to a 7-year contract, which he stated restricted her ability to work. These allegations were not brought to light until after Hitchcock's death. Why did she wait so long? Although they have never been confirmed, they have been widely reported, including Hedren's co-star Rod Taylor, the hirsute eyebrows, hairy chest dude. Hedren would later claim during a 2016 interview with Larry King that the sexual advances didn't happen until we were almost finished with Marnie. Oh, she changed her story. And that they had not started during The Birds, and that up until the end of Marnie, Hitchcock had been easy to work with. But in her memoir released around the same time, she repeated the earlier allegations, though clarified that the sexual assaults didn't begin until Marnie. So I guess Hitchcock, her stories that Hitchcock was obsessed with her, wouldn't leave her alone, always tormenting her. And then finally, he laid her hands on her butt or something around the end of Marnie. The controversy of this relationship is explored in the 2012 HBO BBC film The Girl. Hedren's daughter, Melanie Griffith, claims that Hitchcock's abuse extended to her when he played a prank by gifting 6-year-old Melanie with a wax figure of her mother in a miniature coffin. That's pretty creepy. She should have kept it as a collector's item. I want to check out The Girl now. Anyways, nobody's in the chat room. Nobody cares about my 1-hour video here. We shall continue. The film premiered March 28th, 1963 in New York City. The Museum of Modern Art hosted an invitation-only screening as part of a 50-film retrospective of Hitchcock's film work. The MoMA series had a booklet with a monograph on the director written by Peter Bogdanovich. The film was screened out of competition in May at a prestigious invitational showing at the 1963 Cannes Film Festival, with Hitchcock and Hedren in attendance. Well, that must have been an uncomfortable pair at Cannes. Considering that Hedren insisted Hitchcock was creeping on her. As a special favor to Hedren, Hitchcock allowed her to take a copy of the film with her when she visited her hometown of Minneapolis after the film premiered in New York City. On April 1st, Hedren hosted her parents and about 130 residents of Lafayette, Minnesota, where her parents lived when she was born, to an exclusive screening of the film at the local neighborhood theater Hedren frequented in her youth, the Westgate in Morningside, Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis, where Hedren grew up. The theater was demolished in 2019. The Birds received mixed reviews upon its initial release. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times was positive, calling it a horror film that should raise the hackles on the most courageous and put goose pimples on the toughest hide. Crowther was unsure whether The Birds were meant to be an allegory, because it isn't in Mr. Hitchcock's style to inject allegorical meanings or social significance in his films, but he suggested they could represent the furies of Greek mythology who pursued the wicked upon the earth. The book's author, Daphne Demure, disliked the film because Hitchcock changed the location from a farm in New England to a sleepy beach community in Northern California. Andrei Tarkovsky considered a masterpiece and named it one of the 7 essential works of cinema. Stanley Kaufman of the New Republic called The Birds the worst thriller of Hitchcock's that I can remember. Richard L. Coe of the Washington Post called it gorgeous good fun in the vein of Hitchcock's earlier black comedy, The Trouble with Harry, adding, "I haven't had this kind of merriment since King Kong toppled the Empire State Building. The monthly film bulletin wrote, "For all the brilliance of scenes like the attack down the chimney, one rarely has a chance to suspend disbelief, but reviewer the review still thought that there is still a great deal more to enjoy than Carpat." The film ranked second on Cahir's Du Cinema's top 15 films of the year list in 1963. Andrew Saris of The Village Voice praised the film, writing, "Drawing from the relatively invisible literary talents of Daphne du Maurier and Evan Hunter, Alfred Hitchcock has fashioned a major work of cinematic art." Philip K. Shearer of the Los Angeles Times was among the critics who panned the film, writing that Hitchcock was once widely quoted as saying he hated actors. After his 1960 Psycho and now The Birds, it must be fairly obvious that he has extended his abhorrence to the whole human race for reasons hardly justified either dramatically or aesthetically. The old master has become a master of the perverse. He has gone all out for shock's sake. And it is too bad. No, it's not. We like Alfred Hitchcock trying to imitate the other master showman. William Castle. We like this period in Hitchcock's career where he's trying to imitate William Castle. He's trying to be a showman here. And you can watch you can see it in the trailer for both Psycho and The Birds. Variety published a mixed assessment, writing that while the film was slickly executed and fortified with his characteristic tongue-in-cheek touches, Hitchcock deals more provocatively and effectively in Human Menace. A fantasy framework dilutes the toxic content of his patented terror tension formula and gives the picture a kind of sci-fi exploitation feel, albeit with a touch of production gloss. Yeah, I agree. This is an exploitation movie on a big budget. No question about it. Brendan Gill of The New Yorker called the film a sorry failure, hard as it may be to believe of Hitchcock. It doesn't arouse suspense, which is of course what justifies and transforms the sadism that lies at the heart of every thriller. Here, the sadism is all too nakedly, repellently present. It is the only Hitchcock movie to have been featured in Mad magazine. As for The Birds, issue 82, October 1963, by Mort Drucker, Arnie Kogan, and Lou Silverstone. In the Mad spoof, it is revealed that the Birds are controlled by Burt Lancaster as revenge for not having won an Academy Award that year for his starring role in Birdman of Alcatraz. The film's first television broadcast was in Canada on CTV television on December 30th, 1967. My birthday is December 30th, 1970. Its subsequent U.S. appearance was on NBC television on January 6th, 1968, and it became the most watched film on television, surpassing The Bridge on the River Kwai with a Nielsen rating of 38.9 and an audience share of 59%. The record was beaten in 1972 by Love Story. With the passage of time, much like many other Hitchcock's works, the film's standing among critics has much improved. The film has been very influential on the horror genre, inspiring filmmakers like del Toro and John Carpenter. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 93 whopping rating based on reviews from 59 credits, with an average whopping rating of 8.2 out of 10. And the web's consensus states, proving once again that buildup is the key to suspense. Hitchcock successfully turned birds into some of the most terrifying villains in horror history. I don't want to go to Bodega Bay now. On Metacritic, it has a score of a whopping 90 out of 100 based on critics' reviews from 15 critics. Film critic David Thompson refers to it as Hitchcock's last unflawed film. Italian filmmaker Federico Fellini ranked the film among his top 10 favorite movies of all time list. So that's quite that's quite why do art house people in France and Italy love Hitchcock so much? I think it's because of the jump cuts and the cinematography. Akira Kurosawa included the film in his top 100 favorite films of all time list. In 2000, The Guardian ranked the scene where the crows gather on the climbing frame at number 16 on their list of the top 10 100 film moments. I'll have to agree with that. That was awesome, that scene. The scenes where birds are attacking humans viciously were collectively ranked at number 92 on Bravo's The 100 Scariest Movie Moments. In 2021, the film was ranked at number 29 by Time Out on their list of the 100 best horror movies. The film was honored by the American Film Institute as the seventh greatest thriller in U.S. cinema. At the 36th Academy Awards, the film's special effects supervisor, Ube Urix, was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Special Effects, but lost to Cleopatra. Hedren received the Golden Globe Award for New Star of the Year actress in 1964, tying with Ursula Andress and Elke Sommer. She also received the Photoplay Award as Most Promising Newcomer. The film ranked number one of the top 10 foreign films selected by the Bengal Film Journalists Association Awards. Hitchcock also received the association's Director Award for the film. It also won the Horror Hall of Fame Award in 1991. Planned remake was announced in 2007, starring Naomi Watts and directed by Martin Campbell, with a script by Styles White and Juliet Snowden. In 2017, the BBC announced that it would be creating a television miniseries that followed DeMaro's original novel. The series will be written by Connor McPherson and produced by David Heyman's Heyday Television. A poorly received television sequel, The Birds 2: Land's End, was released in 1994. Director Rick Rosenthal removed his name from credit and used the Hollywood pseudonym Alan Smythe. The sequel featured entirely new characters in different setting, with Bodega Bay only mentioned once. Tippi Hedren returned in a supporting role, but not as her original character. I've got to see The Birds 2: Land's End, and also what's the other one? There's another movie on here. Oh, I know where it is. Go back up. It's The Girl, 2012. And then we've got The Birds 2 Lands in 1994. Two more films to add to my list. And if I can find the sequel to Birdemic, I will add it. Now I'm up over an hour. And cha-ching, this film is super lame stream. The Birds, 1963, rated PG-13, 1 hour 59 minutes. Gets a whopping 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb. 2012 ratings. 212,000 ratings. Excuse me. 212,000, not 2012. And in terms of popularity, it's ranked 3,159 on the popularity meter, up 145. A wealthy San Francisco socialite pursues a potential boyfriend to a small Northern California town that slowly takes a turn for the bizarre when birds of all kinds suddenly begin to attack people. More like this, Marnie, which I didn't like. Rope, which is my favorite Hitchcock movie by far. Vertigo, another great flick, right up there with Rope. And Psycho, pretty decent Anthony Perkins horror flick. Psycho. When audiences left the UK premiere at the Odeon, Leicester Square, London, they were greeted by the sound of screeching and flapping birds from loudspeakers hidden in the trees to scare them further. You see what I mean when when I say that Hitchcock is trying to imitate the Great Showman, William Castle here? After two birds break the glass on the phone booth, it appears that the glass isn't shattered when Melanie is grabbed out of it. Mother in the diner says to Melanie, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" They said, when you got here, the whole thing started. Who are you? Who are you? Where did you come from? I think you're the cause of all this. I think you're evil. Evil. Okay. There were no ending credits, and in the opening credits, the title "The Birds" was solely pecked away by the passing crows. The Australian theatrical version removed 25 seconds of the bloody farmer with eyes pecked out to gain a suitable only for adults rating in Australia. It was later reclassified PG in its uncut version. I can see why they wanted to cut that scene. That is just pure brutality, and it's shocking that Hitchcock could get away with such a scene in 1963. It's great. This was Hitchcock is so lamestream, and yet he's able to get away with this dude's just sitting there with his eyes poked out, looking pretty gruesome. This was edited into Cada Ver-S, 1981. Soundtracks: Wrestle D, I Married My Wife in the Month of June, derived from the traditional Scottish folk song, The Wee Cooper o' Fife, additional lyrics by Evan Hunter, sung by the school children. Okay. I thought Wikipedia said it was a different song. I'm confused now. Anyways, Here's a less flattering review, but not by much. It's somebody who goes by Sleeping Dragon wrote a review dated March 3rd, 2022, relatively recent within the last few years. Um, Sleeping Dragon gives it a 9 out of 10. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. I love this flick. Highly recommended. Check it out. Definitely one of Hitchcock's better films. And he's got a lot of them. He's got a lot of 10 out of 10 movies. He's probably the greatest director of all time. Still Terrifying is the name of the review on IMDb. What if imagine the unthinkable happened and all of a sudden the birds attacked? You have to hand it to Hitchcock. He knew how to scare people by taking the ordinary, the everyday, and twisting it around and making it scary. He did that pretty much to perfection here. So the first half of the movie is slow. It's almost sedate. Not a lot actually happens. However, the second half is completely different. You can only imagine what audiences back in 1963 thought. As of 2002, it's 22. It still terrifies. It looks really good. The special effects for the time actually hold up very well. Yeah, when compared to Birdemic. Tippi Hedren is impressive as Melanie. It's a very sincere, strong performance. I'll agree with that. The next time you put some bird food out for the jackdaws and magpies, just wonder what if the unthinkable did actually happen. Great horror from the real master of suspense, 9 out of 10. And that's the end of my review. I actually like The Birds better than Psycho. I was impressed. It exceeded my expectations. All right, going down my list, I've got Not Wanted, 1949, which I'll watch tomorrow night, followed by Kinjite, Forbidden Subjects, 1989, and Young and Innocent, 1937. So those are my next three. Thanks for showing up in the chat room for about 10 minutes, Adrian. I will look to see if those three movies are available. The what was it? The Birds 2, Land's End, and The Girl, and Birdemic 2, or whatever the name of the film is. I'll look for those three, and thanks for being in the chat room earlier. Laters.